Life of David Livingston, Part 54. From the point where Dr. Livingston died to Unyanyembe was a distance of upward of 1,000 miles. This the doctor's faithful attendants traversed with his remains, frequently having to diverge materially from the road to circumnavigate hostile demonstrations of parties of natives. 6 toilsome months were consumed in this journey, and the month of November had opened ere they reached Yembembe. Thence after a pause, they bore the precious burden to Zanzibar, where they arrived February 1874, and delivered the corpse and the doctor's personal effects into the custody of the British Consul General, who immediately shipped them in care of Mr. Arthur Lang for England. Among those who accompanied the body was Jacob Wainwright, Dr. Livingston's body servant, Dr. at Aden, and the steamer Malwa, which had been sent out of the British government, met them, and the party were transferred to her. On the 15th of April, the Malwa arrived at Southampton, and at 11 o'clock landed the party with the corpse at the Royal Pier in the presence of a vast concourse of people estimated to be upward of 50,000, business having been suspended, and all classes of people having come to testify their respect for the illustrious dead. The mayor formally received the remains, and they were borne to the railway station, accompanied by the assembly and those assembled thousands, while minute guns were fired and the bells tolled. The scene was very impressive. The remains were thence carried to London by rail, and arriving there at about 3 o'clock p.m., were taken in charge by the Royal Geographical Society, who had the coffin transferred to the hearse and taken to their rooms, followed by the numerous line of carriages and a large number of persons on foot. Here the corpse was viewed by Sir William Ferguson in the presence of Doctors Kirk and Loudon, Reverend Dr. Moffat, and others, the object being to identify the remains and to remove all possibility of cavil as to their being those of Dr. Livingston. The result can best be told in Sir William Ferguson's own words, and hence we insert his letter to the London Lancet. Quote, "Within the last few months, many have hesitated to believe that Livingston was dead. Above all, it seemed beyond ordinary possibility that his remains would have been brought from Central Africa to the heart of London. That a body was on the way from this all but mythological region could hardly be doubted after the examination at Zanzibar and of the remains, but many were skeptical as to the dead frame being that of Livingston. Happily, it was borne in mind by many old friends that he had one condition of body which would mark the identification of his remains, even if years and years had elapsed. If it should be proved on anatomical examination that the remains of the old ununited fracture of his left humerus or arm bone could be recognized, all doubt on the subject would be settled at once and forever. It has fallen to my lot to have the honor of being selected to make the crucial examination to this end, and I have accordingly performed that duty. From what I have seen, I am much impressed with the ingenious manner in which those who have contrived to secure that the body should be carried through the long distance from where Livingston died until it could reach a place where transit was comparatively easy and accomplished their task. The lower limbs were so severed from the trunk that the length of the bulk of package was reduced to a little over 4 feet. The soft tissues seemed to have been removed to a great extent from the bones of these, and these latter were so disposed of that by doubling and otherwise shortening was accomplished. The abdominal viscera were absent, and so were those of the chest, including, of course, heart and lungs. There had been made a large opening in the front of the abdomen, and through that the native operators had ingeniously contrived to remove the contents of the chest as well as the abdomen. The skin over the chest, sternum, and ribs have been untouched. Before these points were clearly ascertained, some coarse tapes had to be loosened, which set free some rough linen material, a striped colored bit of cotton cloth, such as might have been an attractive material for the natives among whom Livingston traveled, a coarse cotton shirt, and doubtless belonged to the traveler's scanty wardrobe, and in particular a large portion of bark of a tree, which had formed the principal part of the package, and the case thereof, no doubt. The skin of the trunk, from the pelvis to the crown of the head, had been untouched. Everywhere, after salting, barking in the sun, and 11 months, was shriveling as might be expected. The features of the face could be not recognized. The hair on the scalp was plentiful and much longer than he wore it when he was last in England. A mustache could not be recognized, but whiskers were in abundance. The forehead was in shape such as we are familiar with from memory and from the pictures and bust now extant. The circumference of the cranium from the occiput to the brow was 23 7/8 inches, which was recognized by some to be in accordance with the measurement when alive. In particular, the arms attracted attention. They lay as if placed in ordinary fashion, each down by the side. The skin and tissues under where each side shrunk almost to skeleton bulk, and at a glance, to practiced eyes, there were 5, I may say 6, professional men present to state of the left arm was such as to convince everyone present who had examined it during life that the limb was Livingston's. Exactly in the region of the attachment of the deltoid to the humerus, there were the indications of an oblique fracture. On moving the arm, there were the indications of the ununited fracture, ununited fracture. A close investigation and dissection displayed the false joint, which had long ago been so well recognized by those who had examined the arm in former days. The Reverend Dr. Moffat and in particular Dr. Kirk, late of Zanzibar, and Dr. Loudon of Hamilton in Scotland, at once recognized the condition. Having myself been consulted regarding the state of the limb when Livingston was last in London, I was convinced that the remains of the great traveler lay before us. Thousands of heads with a large circumference might have been under similar scrutiny. The skeletons of hundreds of thousands might have been so. The humors in each might have been perfect, and one or both had been broken during life, and if it would have been united again in such a manner that a tyro could easily have detected the peculiarity. The condition of united fracture in this locality is extremely rare. I say that from my personal professional experience, and that such a specimen should have turned up in London from the center of Africa, excepting in the body of Dr. Livingston, where it was known by competent authorities to have existed, is beyond human credibility. It must not be supposed by those who are not professionally acquainted with this kind of lesion, which often causes so much interest to the practical surgeon, that a fracture and new joint of the kind now referred to could have been of recent date, made for a purpose. There were in reality all the indications which the experienced pathologist recognizes as infallible, such as the annotated condition of the two great fragments and the semblance of a new joint. But actually, there was a small fragment detached from the others which bore out Livingston's own view that the bones had been crushed into splinters. Having had ample opportunity of examining the arm during life and conversing with Livingston on the subject, of being one of those who entertained hopes that the last reports of Livingston's death might, like others, prove false, I approached the examination with the anxious feeling regarding this great and most particular crucial test. The first glance at the left arm set my mind at rest, and that with the further examination made me as positive as to the identity of these remains as that there had been among us in modern times one of the greatest men of the human race, David Livingston. On Saturday, the 18th of April, all that was mortal of the great missionary explorer was consigned to its last resting place at Westminster Abbey. The funeral procession started at about 10 o'clock from the rooms of the Royal Geographical Society, and was participated in by an innumerable number of people of all ranks of life. The cortege included the hearse and 12 mourning coaches, and the private carriages of the Queen and Prince of Wales and German Ambassador Baroness Baudet-Kutz, Lady Franklin, and many others. The pallbearers were Mr. Stanley, Jacob Wainwright, Sir Thomas Steele, W.C. Oswell, W.F. Webb, Dr. Kirk, Reverend H. Waller, Mr. Young, Reverend Steele, and Kalulu, the African boy brought home by Stanley. Among the mourners, we may note the Duke of Sutherland, Lord Houghton, and Duke of Manchester. The bishops of Lincoln and Sierra Leone, the Lord Mayor of Corporation of London, Lord Straffordbury, Colonel Grant, Mr. Moran, the American Secretary